Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to VTTV. It is Monday, the 19th of January 2015, and it's Drips and Tips with me, Davey, and as always, my right-hand man, my wingman. A man who can grow facial hair so fast it's superhuman. It's almost as if you look closely, it will just, you can see it growing. I don't know what it is. I think maybe, you know how some guys who are going bald use hair tonic? I think he uses it on his face. Either that or he just forces it out, you know, kind of sits there and goes, and then his beard pops up. I don't know, but it is the cockwomber himself, Andy Abrook. How are you, man?
I swear to God, one of these days, David, I'm going to come around your house and I'm going to poop in your shoes for that comment. I don't just sit there and use hair tonic, right?
So you are forcing it out then? You literally sit
I am literally sat there going, moustache! Right, we're supposed to be having a serious one tonight, eh?
We are having a serious one tonight, we are. We have a lot of things we want to discuss and we have a very special guest coming up. But before we go through all that, we need to run the titles. So if we can have those, please.
No. Should I get the magic sponge? Oh. That's a keeper. Try that again. Oh man. Empty. And that's a wrap.
So here we are. Thanks for watching, everyone. We have a very special guest, as I mentioned, and we have a lot to talk about. And our guest tonight is none other than Dr. Farsalinos. Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation once again. Very nice talking to you as always.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Now, the main thing we're going to be talking about tonight is we noticed last week, and I think Matt brought it up on his show last week, is this move, which is medical organisations in support of vaping and e-cigs. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about
Yes.
this, about who came up with the idea and what the project is all about?
I think it was Jerry Stimson's idea. And the idea is to mobilize the medical community, and especially those people who believe in the potential of e-cigarettes but live in a very hostile environment and don't have the opportunity to present their views. We want to mobilize the whole medical community and to present the true facts about the e-cigarettes and their potential to serve as a tobacco harm reduction product. Therefore, Jerry created this platform, and we hope that we will attract a lot of interested parties, and grow up as a community in the healthcare profession, expressing our views about e-cigarettes. Views based on research and based on the facts that we know so far.
Right. So who else is involved in this? I mean, you've obviously mentioned Jerry there. Who else is actually behind this movement?
I didn't hear you very well.
Sorry, you mentioned that Jerry's involved. Who else is actually
Yeah.
involved with this?
It is Jerry Stimson, Ricardo Poloza, of course, and someone from Spain, which I don't really remember the name. Perhaps you could remind me, someone from Spain, but it's still too early. It's just a couple of weeks that this has come out, a little bit more, but it's over the past 2 weeks that we are discussing about this. So it's still, just now going out, and we hope we will have a nice progress over the next few weeks or months. So it's still quite an early movement. There is not a lot of things happening on that. It's what you see. It's a text showing, in a very fast way, some of the main points concerning e-cigarettes and their role in tobacco harm reduction, and trying to attract people who are, either positive or even, are open-minded and want to further examine this issue of e-cigarettes. So there's not a lot of movement. There is not a lot of publicity till now. But we hope that as time progresses, it's going to grow bigger.
Right. Okay. So in that respect, obviously this is aimed at medical professionals and healthcare professionals. What can we as vapers do to help promote this?
Well, I suppose what you can do is make this public so that other medical professions come visit the website, see our views, maybe become interested in contacting some of us and further discuss on this issue. So, everyone knows a health professional. Everyone has a family doctor. Everyone has someone who has been sick and has visited a doctor. So I think that, in a mouth-to-mouth word, I think it will help a lot.
Right. So basically,
e-cigarette forums are, everyone is watching e-cigarette users. There are scientific groups in the US who are paid by the FDA and by the CDC just to monitor websites, forums, Twitter, Facebook accounts, and so on, and evaluate how vapers use e-cigarettes and so on, and how they promote e-cigarettes, etc. So you have the power. You just don't know it, maybe. It's not so obvious. But a lot of people are watching you. So I think that's a good idea on how to promote this.
So basically just get the word out everywhere that we can then?
Exactly. That's the best thing you can do. It's not only health professionals, but if everyone knows it, and everyone knows some health professionals, then of course that's going to work too.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it there from the good doctor himself. Get to it. Tell everybody now. Get to it. Don't talk about.
And also, on that point, if you know a smoker who is thinking of quitting and is going to see a smoking cessation service thing, then tell them about this movement that you've got going on. Is that something that would be good, like is happening down in, is it Leicester? With the good Miss Ross?
Yeah, of course, that will also work. But even for the vapers themselves, seeing this text, which describes in a very short way, in a very clear way, I can say it in simple words, what's the true potential of these cigarettes, I think it's also informative for the vapers or for the smokers who are potential future vapers. But the main goal of this is to alert the medical community.
Right.
Because although we have grown quite a lot, we are still a very, very small minority within the medical community supporting. I prefer the word supporting rather than favoring, because it's not a matter of favoring something, but it's a matter of supporting something based on the facts that we know so far. And there are a lot of health professionals, as I said, who don't want to speak up, and there are many others who have been influenced by the bad publicity. Because you know, bad publicity is coming also from scientific organizations, and even for healthcare professionals, when they hear something that's coming from a group or from an institute that they respect, they don't give it a lot of thought. They don't give it a lot of thinking. So they just accept what they hear without thinking about it. And knowing that there is a growing area of misinformation in e-cigarettes, I think it's very important to alert the medical community too, in the same way that the consumers should also be alerted, and make them think in a critical way before they accept whatever they hear all over the news or whatever.
So that in the same way, it's sorry, Andy. In the same way, it's what we need to be speaking to medical professionals about is the same thing we need to be doing in the media and actually trying to get the positive side of vaping out there, rather than all this negative news that we keep on hearing.
Yes, exactly. You know, it's very important because we are very close to the regulations. The regulations are imminent. 2016 is not very far away for the Europe. The FDA is continuously working on preparing some regulations. They might probably affect Europe too. They may affect some countries within Europe. Because there is some freedom within the European Union for countries to develop their own adjustments of the TPD. And I think that it's going to be a battle that is going to take many, many years. It's going to last a lot of years. It's not something that's going to finish within the next 1 or 2 years. So expect that there will be a controversy on e-cigarettes for a long time. The more we become, the better. There is a lot of improvement compared to last year or 2 years ago, where we were, you know, just a very small minority and nobody was listening to us. But still, I must tell you that we're a very, very small minority. And we're getting, you know, and we're having problems because of that. Because we get a lot of criticism, we get a lot of criticism from respected institutions and universities and research groups. And, you know, it creates a lot of problems, a lot of issues.
Well, that's just one of the things, isn't it? You know, as you were saying there earlier, a lot of the medical professionals that we deal with on a day-to-day basis do generally listen to a lot of what is essentially cherry-picked, forgive me for using inverted commas, but cherry-picked scientific research, which is quite frightening from our perspective, because forgive me for name-checking people with the likes of Stanton Glantz, who we've been talking about recently, quite frankly putting out some blatant lies, and this is listened to. This is why we've, excuse me, decided to cover Move tonight, because I'm utterly behind this.
You have to understand that all this misinformation is not coming out by coincidence. It is an organized approach, and it is happening in an organized fashion by using PR companies, by using public relations people, approaching journalists and approaching the news media. It is mostly obvious, and the most obvious, you know, showing that this is the case, came from the latest study on healthy cells which are damaged by e-cigarette use, which was a study published in September, and suddenly in late December and early January, you could see all over the news a study which meant nothing because it didn't even use a tobacco cigarette as a comparison. It only used clean air. It meant nothing, and you see on the other hand, the two toxicology studies that my group has performed in the last 2 years never received any kind of publicity. And we tested 21 and 24 samples in one and the other one, e-cigarette samples. We compared that with tobacco cigarettes. We evaluated death of the cells, and no one wanted to look at it because we didn't have a PR firm behind us, you know, promoting the study through press releases or whatever. For a study that was published in September, and in reality meant really nothing, and to be on the news 3 months later, it's not a coincidence, and it doesn't mean that the journalists suddenly saw the study. Someone proposed presented the study to the journalists now, and it's an organized, in a very organized, a very well organized way. So they have the means, they have the PR relationship, the PR companies and the PR ways to promote their strategy and their thinking to the news media. And it's something that the supporters of e-cigarettes don't have. We lag a lot behind into that. And you know, considering also the fact that we are the minority, we are in reality being targeted for being, you know, the strange people who are saying something against the majority. And this is creating even problems in our daily living and in our professional status. You have to understand that we are risking quite a lot of things by supporting e-cigarettes every day. I don't want to mention specific examples, but I can tell you that there are people who have lost a lot just because they are supporting e-cigarettes strictly on a scientific basis. So I'm not supporting it because I own a company or I'm getting money from a company or I sell a product. I'm supporting it not even based on my arbitrary thinking, but based on the facts. But still, we are being targeted continuously. You can see that. I mean, it's obvious.
So do you think
you're saying, Davey? Sorry,
it's all right, Andy.
my question. What you're saying there, Doctor, is that to a degree you're getting a fair amount of discredit.
They are trying to do that, and they are trying to attack us on several. In many occasions, you have seen the blogs by Stanton Glantz criticizing me for accepting a study. I mean, why shouldn't I accept a study which was perfectly valid, very well conducted, strictly scientifically conducted, and suddenly I was with my name, the name of a journal? That's intimidation, you know. That's intimidation in order to avoid doing the same thing again, because he doesn't like that thing. I mean, that's clear intimidation.
It's horrifying, actually, if you think about it. I mean, essentially, this is playground name-calling, really.
Yeah, concerning the discredit that you mentioned, you know, they are trying to discredit us all the time. The problem that they have is that overall the research is producing consistent results. And it's very hard to discredit someone based on theories. And most of these people are not even performing research themselves. That's why it is very hard for them to discredit someone. In order to discredit someone, in reality, you have to explain and show that he is doing bad research. So he cannot say anything about the methodology. He cannot say anything about the results. He cannot say, no one can say that we manufactured the results ourselves. We manipulate the results. Every study is producing consistent results, and I'm going to show in the next few weeks and months why the formaldehyde studies that have found, like the Japanese study, which found huge levels of formaldehyde, why this is wrong. It's going to come through research, and this is the proper way. But so it's very hard for them to discredit us on a scientific basis. So they are trying to discredit us just by targeting us because we are the minority supporting cigarettes, because some of the studies were funded by some companies using unrestricted funds, which was a very, very small minority. I mean, I have 3 studies out of 23 publications funded, and it wasn't. They were not even my funds. They were the companies funded the hospital to do the study because there were expenses of the hospital. So, you know, they're trying with several tricks to target and discredit us and remove us from the discussion because we don't agree with them. Of course, they will not succeed because some of us are crazy enough not to care about whether they like us or not to care whether we're going to have problems in our daily professional life or not. I must tell you that I will never be approached by any pharma company, and I'm losing thousands of euros because of that. Because if I would do 10 times
Have we lost the good doctor there?
I think we
money.
might have
No,
lost.
no. Maybe he's back. Please continue, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah. So, that's what I'm telling you. That being the minority and saying something that the rest of the scientific population doesn't like makes us a target.
So there's a question here that's coming from chat from excuse me, from Maxstrom. He says, do you think that there should be a consequence for those qualified medical professionals who encourage the misinformation, knowing full well the damage their opinions can cause?
Ooh.
Of course. But there is no mechanism. Listen, if I give the wrong medication to a cardiology patient and he suffers a side effect, I'm going to be held accountable for malpractice. Why shouldn't they become accountable for malpractice? And the difference is that I'm going to be accountable for malpractice, although I didn't do anything, consciously. It was a mistake, and humans can do mistakes. In this case, I find it very hard for these people not to understand what they are seeing and what they are reading, because I don't consider them stupid. So they are doing something consciously, because they have ideology issues, because they have whatever other issues, because they believe that the only solution is a nicotine-free society. They don't like seeing anything being exhaled, any visible thing being exhaled like vapor or smoke or whatever. I don't care. But ideology in an area where people are dying every day as a consequence of smoking is malpractice, is worse than malpractice. The tobacco industry they were completely ridiculed in the courts, and in the master settlement they lost billions of dollars, not just because the product was lethal, but because they knew it was lethal and they were hiding it. And that's where the malpractice is coming. Knowing something that you say is not true, but still supporting it. And in this way, discouraging people from switching, making vapers relapse to smoking. That's the biggest crime. And I've seen cases like this. And this is something that has to stop. But unfortunately, there is no accountability. On the contrary, people who were the minority and were expressing views that, according to the rest, were radical, they were expelled.
What?
There are cases. I'll give you an example. James Enstrom was a professor at the University of California for 35 years. He lost his job because in one study he found that second-hand smoking did not cause cancer or heart disease, and in another study he found that environmental pollution is not causing that much health damage as we think and we hear all the time. And just because of these two studies, he was expelled from the university after 35 years of career. That's what is at stake.
It's almost
You have to
reminiscent of the dark
understand that there are
ages, isn't it?
people who are afraid of losing their job because they are considered radicals just because they support e-cigarettes.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
It is a
For them,
reminiscent
it's
of
something
the dark ages, isn't
radical. They don't want to accept it.
This is the thing, though, isn't it? We've got something here that could be one of the biggest public health benefits that we've seen, and yet it's being bombed constantly.
Of course.
And that makes no sense
I'll give you
whatsoever.
now a new story, which I'm sure not even health professionals know, very few know. The IARC is the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It's a WHO institute. As you know, nicotine is not classified as a carcinogen by the IARC. But in 2015, they have assigned nicotine as the most urgent substance, the substance that most urgently needs to be studied for carcinogenicity, just because of the elevation in the use of nicotine through e-cigarettes. So if they were seeing an elevation in nicotine use through NRTs, no one would care to start re-evaluating whether nicotine is carcinogenic. Now that they are seeing it be used by through e-cigarettes, they are making it an urgent priority suddenly to redefine whether nicotine is carcinogenic or not. And I think that is very, very bad news.
So that kind of smacks as a, you know, we've talked about it before, as where is the money coming from? You know, this is, it's a money thing. It's follow the trail.
Indeed.
Of course it's a money thing.
On that note, gentlemen, shall we take our first round of adverts and then come back in with some more questions for the good doctor?
Yes, indeed.
See you in a second, guys.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VapeTrails.tv.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. So, moving on from... Sorry, I've got devices here with the questions on. I need to unlock them. Moving on from our first segment there. Dr. K, how is your current research going, and have you found anything else that you can tell us about?
As you know, my current research is associated with temperatures of evaporation and the production of aldehydes. So we are proceeding. The crowdfunding campaign went perfectly. So we gathered all the funds. We are moving forward. Right now we are setting up the lab. We already have the whole equipment of measuring in real time the temperatures. And we are going to start by a study which will evaluate temperatures alone. and we are going to assess different wick setups, different wick materials, and different, of course, path durations and path volumes. And so the first study that is going to be submitted for publication is going to be related to that. And then, once the lab is ready, we are going to start measuring aldehydes in the vapor and associate the aldehydes released with the temperatures of evaporation. I must tell you that we have also almost completed two other clinical studies. One is evaluating the vaping topography, which means number of puffs and puff duration in realistic conditions, meaning that we gave vapors an EVIC Supreme in reality for 5 days, and they were using the EVIC Supreme for 5 days in their normal daily activities, and we collected the recordings of the device concerning number of puffs, puff duration, wattage levels, and so on. We also collected data on the amount of liquid that they consumed every day, so that's going to be valuable data. And we also have completed a second clinical study which evaluated how a vapor changes his vaping patterns if you give him to vape at 2 different wattage levels. So we assessed what's happening when you go from 6.5 to 10 watts, and of course, something that no one in the research community knows, all these people who are doing the studies on formaldehyde and so on, we proved what we already know, that if you give someone to vape at higher wattage levels, he's going to reduce the puff duration. And we saw that just by going to from 6.5 to 10 watts, they reduced the puff duration by approximately 0.8 to 0.9 seconds. So the puff duration at 10 watts was lower. And of course, we know why. Because at higher wattage levels, you are consuming more liquid per puff at the same amount of time, because you have higher evaporation rate. That's something that many people don't even understand. And of course, the vapor who always wants to get the same amount of vapor coming out, he's going to adjust his patterns of use when he goes from one wattage to the other.
Right, so when you're talking about...
It's obvious, it's something very obvious for you and for me, but for the scientific community, it's something completely new that they don't know and they don't understand. That's why there's a need to continuously produce and publish studies which are going to show all these things. I must tell you that currently I have 4 studies which are under review for publication. Some of them, I can tell you that one of them should be headline news all over the world.
When you say headline news, is this
It should be headline news because it evaluates how many lives will be saved within 20 years if e-cigarettes are endorsed as a tobacco harm reduction initiative in the US alone. And we're talking about millions.
Is that being
and it's something that under normal conditions it should be headline news all over the world. Now, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen if and when this is going to be published.
But
when can we expect that study to come out?
Sorry?
When can we expect that study to come out?
I hope in a month.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Well, certainly let us know.
Just going back to the studies that you're doing at the moment, you mentioned there about temperature control and everything. Will you be looking at something like the DNA 40? Which is right.
You know, I have a DNA 40 since it was launched. And I also have another device which is made by a Greek manufacturer. I'm going to test both of them. But the issue is not to test the device as a device. The issue is to test the temperature regulation and how it works. Yeah. Whether it can protect you from exposure to aldehydes and what kind of protection you may have. Because you need also to enjoy vaping. So if you set this device at very low temperatures, it may be absolutely safe, but you will not vape because you will not have any vapor production. At 150 degrees Celsius, for example, there is almost no vapor being produced. So it's useless. You can have a perfectly safe product which you don't like and you will not use. You know, NRTs like, something like that. So we need to define at what levels is vaping as safe as possible, but also enjoyable. That's very important.
Yes, I believe, Andy, we've had a few questions in from chat.
We've had a lot of questions in from chat, and let me just bring up the WordPad. So clearly then, Doctor, you have some form of idea formulating right now that the DNA 40 will answer any heat issues that the antis will have.
If these devices work in the way they say they work, they are going to improve vaping, I'm sure. However, the first thing that I've seen is that the dry puff phenomenon is pretty consistent in terms of the temperature where you can feel it. And I'm very close in defining at what temperature you're starting to feel the dry puff. And this is extremely important for the study on aldehydes, because my main goal is to expose all this research on aldehyde that they are finding huge levels of formaldehyde in unrealistic conditions. So by defining at what temperature you start to feel the dry puff as an experienced vapor, then we are going to test the device at this temperature and at lower temperatures. And we are going to see the difference in aldehyde production. So we are going to report probably high numbers of formaldehyde, but the main reason is to tell them that these high numbers are coming from conditions in which no one is using the e-cigarette, because no one can withstand the dry puff phenomenon and this harsh, unpleasant taste of the burning liquid. And this is something that needs to be defined. And that's my main goal. It is to identify the conditions of the dry puff and to find what's happening in these conditions and what's happening at temperatures below these conditions.
Excellent stuff, Doctor. Now, in relation to that, talking of the dry puff, now there's a lot of talk of nickel going about being a better substitute for camphor in terms of coils within the atomizers that we're using with the DNA 40. Are you aware of any potential issues with using nickel wire, and if there are any issues, are they negated by that temperature control? And what would be a safe temperature to be set on the DNA 40?
Nickel, let's say something. One of the studies that is currently under review for publication relates to the risk assessment of an analysis of the heavy metals found that have been found so far from e-cigarettes. So we used the study by the Talbot group, the Williams study, which evaluated a large and found a large number of metals. And we also added the data from the Gonevich study, which found some metals. It was in 2013. And we are doing a risk assessment. And we are finding that there is no reason for concern. However, nickel is one of the 3-4 more toxic heavy metals. Nickel, cadmium, chromium, and lead are the 4 metals of major concern.
That's interesting.
Yeah, these are the 4 metals of major concern: cadmium, chromium, nickel, and lead.
So,
therefore, now the biggest problem with nickel is coming from allergies. So the biggest issue that we may have as by using nickel is allergies, because about 10% of the population is allergic to nickel. However, everything depends not on the material, but on how much of this material is released and is emitted to the aerosol, to the vapor. So right now, and that's a big gap in research, no one knows which metal is more stable, because it's not only a matter of the content of the metal, what's the metal made of, the coil, In most cases, a mixture of several metals. Nichrome is a mixture of metals. Xanthal is a mixture of metals. Nickel 200 is almost pure nickel, 99.7%. But the main issue is not what's the content of the coil, but how much of that is released into the aerosol. Because if the metal is very, very stable and it stays there, you will not be exposed to anything. But if the metal degrades and small, micro molecules are released to the aerosol, then you are going to inhale them. Now, most likely, the vapor is going to be exposed to some metals because the structure of the atomizer is metallic.
Mm.
We need to. One of the sources is the coil, and it's one of the sources because the coil undergoes continuous cycles of heating and cooling, and that creates degradation of the metal. Therefore, there must be a study organized to evaluate different metals in the coil using the same atomizer and making different setups with different coils to evaluate which coil is the most stable under the conditions of electronic cigarette use. In order to do that, you don't need to study only the setup when it's brand new, just after you have made the coil, but you have to test that after 1, 2, 3 days of use, because through continuous use, you are going to evaluate these repeated cooling and heating cycles and how these affect the emission of metals to the vapor. By doing a study on coils, we may define which coils are the safest. Right now, whatever you may hear, we don't have any evidence, so we don't know, and that's the answer.
Is that the kind of study that you'd be looking at doing in the future then, Doctor?
That's a study that I have proposed to do it 2 years ago, but no one was willing to fund it. It's not just an idea that came to me right now. It's just that right now you have more abilities, more metals to look for. We have nickel now. We have maybe stainless steel metal. We may check titanium metal.
Actually, that leads very neatly into a question that we've got from one of our team. Given that titanium can be used in a coil under temperature regulation, is titanium the better bet?
Titanium by itself is not bad. The problem with titanium is that it develops a very, very thin layer of titanium dioxide.
Which is nasty.
If this is released to the vapor, it may be an issue. If it's not, then we don't care again. That's why I'm telling you that it's not a question that can be answered on a theoretical basis. We need to do research on that. And it is something that should have been done years ago. Because as I have mentioned repeatedly, changing the coil with the best material that you can find through research is something that will cost nothing to the factory, nothing to the manufacturer, and nothing to the customer. Because it's so small part of the atomizer, the coil, that even if you choose, for example, titanium, which is more expensive than the others, still the overall cost of the coil in the atomizer is nothing. So nothing will change. It's a very easy fix that is going to cost nothing to the industry.
Excellent stuff.
But it needs to be researched. You cannot just doing some theoretical calculations or theoretical thinking and define what's the best. You don't know that.
Yes, we need to get the exact figures on this. On that note, I think if we take the ads now, and then we'll come back, because there's a few more questions from chat that we can put to you.
Oh, we could go on all night, Davey.
Go on,
Let's take them ads.
Yeah.
Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquids. Proud sponsors of vaping entertainment on Vapor Trails TV.
RY4 Radio. What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapor, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapor, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapor. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapor does not. And that vapor contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapor. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, still with the good doctor. Now, Doctor, I've got a few questions from our chat. Well, we've already asked a couple. The next one is, how do you see cloud chasing? Is it detrimental to promoting e-cigs to the common man and to the government bodies that will be making the decisions?
It is. It is because I'm telling you that I'll give you an example. The University of Arizona, if I remember well, got $2.7 million just to search on Twitter, Facebook, and Facebook to evaluate vaping patterns. You have to understand that people are getting a lot of money just for watching you. And when you are doing all these cloud chasing, exhibitions, that's pretty bad. I'm not saying that, I'm not criticizing the one who is doing that. I'm criticizing the fact that when you promote that and you publish that, you are doing harm to our purpose. Because I believe it's the right of anyone to do whatever he wants. If he wants to do cloud chasing, if he wants to do direct inhalation, it's his job. But right now, we have the whole product at stake, and everyone is trying to grab whatever he can find in order to criticize and attack the product. So it's becoming very difficult for us. It's not that I'm criticizing it. We don't even know if direct inhalation is bad or not. I can tell you that one bad thing that I see with direct inhalation is the huge liquid consumption. All the people who are doing direct lung inhalation with very high wattage levels, they are consuming a lot of liquid on a daily basis. And I can tell you that the more liquid that you consume, the worse it's going to be for your health. It's something that you don't have to be Einstein to understand. but it's the choice of the vapor. I'm not accusing them of doing, I mean, it's their problem even if they do something which is wrong for their health. But the problem that we have is that we are going to see criticism coming out of it because all these people, the regulators and all the scientists who are advising the regulators, they are going to see that. Obviously, they will not even understand what that is, but they are going for sure to characterize it as something bad.
So it goes without saying then that all these videos that we've been seeing on YouTube lately of people being stupid with their coils and stupid with the wattage levels and things like that, there's people, the regulators are out there and they're watching this stuff and they're going to use it against us. So basically
they are paid big money to watch that stuff. I mean, not only watching that, they are paid millions to do that, only that. So they are paid just to surf on the web, on Twitter accounts, on Facebook accounts, videos, YouTube, and so on. And that's an assignment.
David.
I mean, it's officially they are assigned and they are paid to do just that.
I feel we're in the wrong job, Davey.
I think you're right.
You know,
I mean, a few million to watch the video.
I am a cloud chaser, and I do get concerned over the amount of e-liquid I do go through. I mean, I've got the Zageli 100 here and various other high wattage devices here, and I do get concerned about the sheer amount of e-liquid I go through. But it's kind of worrying. Well, it's not worrying, and it is.
Let me tell you something.
Go ahead, Doctor.
I think that the direct lung inhalation is going to be the best way to get as much nicotine as you need. So for a smoker, I think it would be great. He would use lower nicotine concentration, but still get huge amounts of nicotine very fast, maybe even in the same rate as a tobacco cigarette. So that would be very good. However,
admittedly, Doctor,
admittedly,
Doctor, I am on a very low nicotine level in my e-liquid. I'm only on 0.6%.
I know, but you know what? You are consuming per puff probably 4 to 5 times higher than by regular vaping.
Do you know what? I actually say this to customers in my shop. Even though it is 0.6%, it acts more like a 1.8% because I feel it effectively triples the hit. And you say,
I think even more, not only the hit, but the important thing and the interesting thing would be to do a study evaluating nicotine plasma levels, a similar one that we did when we compared the V2 with the Evo atomizer and EVIC at 9.5 watts. So that would be great if we could find the funds and do a similar study using a lung inhalation. With lower nicotine levels, doesn't make any difference because with lung inhalation you are taking, and that's why, in reality, that's why you need the high wattage. You need high wattage because you have to produce a lot of vapor in a very short period of time. But the end result is that the consumption of liquid per puff is very, very high. And the problem is that most of the cloud chasers continue to vape on a continuous basis in the way that they were doing it before. That's why they elevate consumption. But
it's funny you should say that.
It's very interesting to evaluate the rate of nicotine absorption from direct lung inhalation. It's going to be very interesting.
We've just had a comment from one of the team that says that I was using 45 milligram juice. Lung inhaling and cloud chasing, I'm using 18 and I'm happy. Still only use 5 mil a day. So that's a good example of that.
If that's Dave, I know Dave was using 45. I'm not sure if anyone else.
I'm pretty sure it is Dave, yeah.
I'm certain it's Dave, because he's sat there like this. We can see him, you guys can't. I can see Dave like this.
Yeah.
And probably he is the only one who is doing cloud chasing with 18 milligrams of nicotine.
I know, yeah.
In all fairness, Doctor,
it's a little bit mad.
I've tried 18 milligrams of cloud chase, never again.
I did 12 and that was enough. Jeez.
Finally, Doctor, because we're running out of time, unfortunately, I wish I could talk to you all night, but finally, we've got a really great question, and I believe one of the team. If you had an open budget, what would you spend your research on, your research money on RE vaping if you had free and unabated choice?
That's a great question. That.
I think that the most important study is the temperature and aldehyde release study that I'm doing now. It's
So
the most important study in understanding the e-cigarette. It's very important for the vapors because the vapors need to understand something. A lot of vapors are very afraid of elevating the wattage levels because they believe that by elevating wattage levels you are going to have a less healthy vapor because of the elevated heat. However, heat is not only the effect of the energy, but it is the combined effect of the energy and the duration that you apply the energy. So knowing that as you elevate wattage levels, a vapor tends to reduce puff duration. It's not, going at 6 watts and taking prolonged puffs, 6, 7, 8 seconds, because you need all this time to produce the vapor that you like, may not be a better idea than going to 10 watts and vaping at 4 seconds, which is much less. Perhaps the thermal load might be higher at the lower wattage levels because of the very prolonged puff duration. So this is a study that is going to, will allow us, first of all, to understand the whole function of this cigarette much better. Give us information not only for regulators, but also for the vapors themselves on the way that they vape. Understand issues like what's happening with different wicking materials, and I can tell you that I'm seeing some very, very interesting things by changing and checking the temperatures with different wicks. What's happening with different wick setups? So these are very, very interesting things, and I think a very important thing for the scientific community and for the regulators is to identify the dry puff conditions, to evaluate whether they are reproducible, meaning whether the vapors have a consistent feeling for the dry puff when this is happening, and to evaluate the difference in the emission of toxins between dry puff conditions and normal vaping conditions. That's going to be crucial for the future of the e-cigarette, because I'm seeing that every day we are going to see studies where scientists take a variable wattage device, use whatever an atomizer they find, and use whatever voltage and wattage they think of, and produce as much formaldehyde as they wish. Because in reality, and I can tell you for sure, I can produce as much formaldehyde as I want. I will just control the amount of overheat. I can produce 100 times more formaldehyde than e-cigarettes, than tobacco cigarettes, sorry. But these are not situations where a vapor is going to be exposed to. But theoretically and on a laboratory, you can produce as much formaldehyde as you want. But these people still don't get it. They think that because the CGLA has 100 watts, they can get an EVOD bottom coil atomizer with a CGLA and vape it at 100 watts. But this is impossible. So that's something that needs to be defined.
Absolutely agree.
There is a lack of knowledge to the level that people cannot even, researchers cannot even distinguish the difference between voltage and wattage.
Well, that's
and
shocking.
They cannot understand the basic concept that the thermal load and thermal degradation is not depending on voltage, but on wattage. I was really disappointed when I saw the BSI standards, the British Standards Institute, the standards for the e-cigarettes. And they were proposing testing the atomizers at 3 different voltage levels. And that's ridiculous, because if you get an atomizer from China with 0.5 ohms resistance and another one with 2 ohms, and you are just applying voltage, you are in reality testing conditions which are 6-fold different in energy delivery. And of course, you are going to destroy the low ohm atomizer. But they don't even understand that. And they still propose voltage levels instead of wattage levels. It is useless to discuss about voltage. It makes no sense.
And that goes all the way back round to the misinformation that these medical professionals are putting out there, doesn't it?
Indeed.
And ignorance for the product. That's the main problem in producing that kind of research. It's ignorance about the product.
Yeah.
And that's
On
the
that
word
point,
from the good doctor.
Yeah, on that
Ignorance.
point, I think we're going to have to call it a night, unfortunately, because we have run out of time. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I think everyone who's watching the show will join us on the team in thanking Dr. Farsalinos for joining us tonight. It's been brilliant. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
once again.
I wish we could run on for 2 hours sometimes because
I wish we could. I could talk all night. It's absolutely brilliant.
eye-opening, I think, is the term we're looking for.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the rundown, Davey?
Yeah, I'll do the rundown. Tomorrow night we have Marco and Gary with, oh my god, my head's blown. What's it called again?
Vapor scene.
Vapor scene.
And I do believe Gary may be absent.
Right, so it might not be Gary then. Might just
Be absent.
We shall see tomorrow night. Wednesday night we have Matt back with The Cave. Thursday night is Keith and his Top Pocket and the good old Dave Dawn with the Hazar. And then there's nothing on Friday. There's nothing on Saturday. And then Sunday it is Dave Kitson with his Tackle Box. And then we will be back next Monday night. And I think we might have some more guests on. So
I am working on more guests to do with Move. Carmen Escrigue, I'm presuming her surname is pronounced.
Yes.
It is, right, okay, thank you, Doctor. Hopefully we'll have Carmen on, though potentially with a translator, because apparently her English isn't particularly great. So you may have to bear with us on that particular show, but I am currently working on that. Also, we've just been informed in our own chat that Thursday features Professor West. So, one to tune into, guys. I know I'll be there.
Definitely.
So, I've been the Fury. This has been the Good Doctor Konstantinos Farasalinos, and he's been
Davey!
I was going to say an empty, but anyway, yeah, Davey will do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for tuning into this quite eye-opening night. Once again, stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
I hope you enjoyed it. Good night.
Bye. Bye.